Back on March 23rd of 2017, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds hit Steam in early access. And since its release, it's consistently been one of the most streamed games on Twitch or any other streaming service like YouTube Gaming and Mixer. I myself have sunk over 200 hours into this game and can safely say that it's addicting. Now, I will be the first to admit that there are a lot of problems with this game and it's not very well optimized and it sometimes runs terrible. I mean, not all the time, but since its release, I think it's been doing fine. It's been nearly 9 months since its release on Steam, and things have gotten better, but it's also had its slew of problems, mainly being hackers or even the microtransactions that they put into the game, which are all purely cosmetic and don't really serve a purpose other than making your character look good. And there's also been a big problem with things not loading in properly on people's hardware. But I think one of the bigger things to come out of this year was stream sniping and how it was brought to the light. Most of those issues are pretty much why people have been leaving negative reviews, making it sit at a currently mixed review score on Steam. And as most of you I'm sure are aware, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds came out on the Xbox One recently, and much to the dismay of some of these console players, it doesn't run very well. As you know me, I like to rustle some jimmies sometimes, so I found this tweet by a lot of the Xbots, or at least he mentions a lot of them by name, and some of them you may know as NextGen720, Colt Eastwood, and Crap Gamer. But D-Batch says, so I'm playing PUBG right now and the frame rate is really bad. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to be an issue that I think a lot of console players are going to have. They're at least the ones on the original Xbox One. Now, the folks over at Digital Foundry did their own review and analysis of PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds on the Xbox One and the Xbox One X. And as you can tell, the results didn't really live up to expectation, at least until you actually got in the game, and even then it was still probably not capable of reaching 30 frames per second, which is abysmal. From their video, you can see in the starting area that the frames just aren't even there. We're talking like sub 20 frames per second. You're literally getting half of the 30 frames per second lock that you were somewhat promised. And it's just incredible that it's even looking like it does and able to run, especially on a potato. Now, the experience may not be there for everyone because everybody's experience is a little bit different. Some may be able to run it just fine at 30 frames per second, but if the people at Digital Foundry have run it on different hardware and they're getting pretty much different results but having the same, if that makes sense, they're running it below 30 is the point. Now, I do feel upset for my console player brethren because I really want them to have a good experience playing a game that I've had fun playing with my friends. But even as we get into more of the game, as you can see from their video, even when you're in the plane getting ready to eject and once you do land, you can see the frames start to pick up a little bit, but consistently it doesn't stay at 30 frames per second. It still has its frame drops and it's still at half of the frame rate that it's supposed to be locked to. It's incredible. Like, I'm almost at a loss for words how bad this is. Now, I've had the pleasure of playing PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds on an ultra-wide monitor and a 4K monitor, and currently I play it on a 4K monitor because I need my pixels, bro. As I let some more of my B-roll footage go, I'm just going to go ahead and talk over it because, boy, expressions are really difficult right now. In the year 2017, when a $500 console is released that promises you uncompromised 4K and the highest quality pixels, it is kind of a slap in the face that a game like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds would come out as broken as it is, at 30 frames per second, at maybe 4K. It just kind of depends on how you play it and which system you play it on out of the Xbox lineup. As you know, some of the Xbots like Zaire or NextGen720 and Colt Eastwood and the Crap Gamer, they all wanted the Xbox One X version to be at 60 frames per second because they heard that it was promised to them. They didn't want to be held back by any previous Xbox One, like the original Xbox One and the Xbox One S. But even with that in mind, it can barely maintain the 30 frames per second on just the Xbox One X, a $500 console. And as you can probably go to Random Gaming in HD, he has a really good channel where you can find out about a lot of the specs of his computers and different builds if you're trying to be on a budget. And those games even run at 60 frames per second. it's incredible that it costs less or maybe the same price and you can run it at 60 frames per second. Now, albeit not at 4K with quote unquote medium settings, but even then, it's just, they should have focused on 1080p or maybe at the most 1440p, because it'll give you that just overall better resolution and you'll be able to maintain your frames. But because they use old outdated CPU technology, that'll never happen. Now, I'm not some technological genius or anything by any stretch of the imagination, but a lot of this game is really CPU heavy, as you'll find out in the Digital Foundry video once you see it. And just from that alone, you can tell that this is really taxing. Even for a computer that's lower end, like, it just probably won't run that well. Even for laptops, it just hardly ever loads in the buildings, as you can probably see on Crobcat's video about how it's a true experience. Like, it's just a really bad struggle for the Xbox One to maintain this game. I have a couple of friends on the Xbox One and I see a couple of them play it, maybe like just 2 or 3, not a whole bunch of people. But on my Steam, there's generally 12 people that have been playing the game, and I've played with most of them, if not all of them. Frame rate has always been a big issue in this game, especially when you get into areas like the bomb zone and different things like that happening, or where there's just a dozen people at one time. But even then, it shouldn't even really happen that way. I mean, you know, you figure they would probably optimize their game, but a lot of the arguments that console peasants used to use was games are optimized for the console experience, or it's just plug and play, or just it's idiot proof. Well, obviously it's not, and there's no way that it ever could be. Now, in this recording, yeah, sometimes you'll see the frame rate just kind of dip, but that's kind of because of the recording, not really so much the game. I haven't figured out OBS yet. I'll figure it out later. But I think that should do it for my small rant, and I just wanted to throw that out there, that these problems do exist on the original Xbox One and the new Xbox One X. Now, if you're to play on PC, you could always change your settings and you can make sure that you maximize a lot of your frames per second, or even just having the graphical detail. Not that you really need a whole lot to see people, because the game is kind of weird like that. But I think if you still want to play this game, I would say go ahead and go for it. A word of warning though is that I would just be aware that this game isn't the best optimized on anything, the PC or the Xbox. And I think the more aware that you are, if the more videos you see of things coming out, like Jack Fraggs' video when he got to play it early, just watch things like those and be more well informed. And I'm sorry if you pre-ordered this game, but it's not complete yet. I would just give it some time, because you're not really missing out on a whole lot, because there's only one map and you'll probably get burned out after a while, but your engagements will always be different. But that's enough of my rant, if you will. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield.